Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Guy Alvarez. I am the Chief Engagement Officer at Good to Be Social, and we want to thank all of you for attending our webinar today, Social Networking Made Easy, How to Get Your Lawyers Sharing, Tweeting, and Posting. We hope that you find this webinar to be useful and valuable in terms of your time. We also wanted to let you know that you are able to ask questions through the screen. So if you have any questions or any comments while we're going through the presentation, please go ahead and do so. We are also using a hashtag, as you can see, pound SOCLAW. So if you want to ask your questions there or you have any comments, please use that hashtag and let everyone know that you're attending this great webinar. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and kick off the program. We want to thank our partners at PostBeyond and want to do a little bit of a brief introduction. As I said, my name is Guy Alvarez. I am the Chief Engagement Officer at Good to Be Social. I am a recovering lawyer, so I did practice law for a period of time, but for the last 15 to 20 years, I have been focused on how to use technology to enhance the practice of law. I am the Chief Engagement Officer of Good to Be Social. Good to Be Social is a company that helps law firms and other professional services firms leverage the use of technology, primarily social technologies, to enhance their overall effectiveness. And with that being said, I'm going to pass this off briefly to Chad McCaffrey. Chad is the VP Strategy and Business Development at PostBeyond, and let Chad introduce himself and give us a few words about PostBeyond.
Certainly. Thank you, Guy, very much. As you mentioned, I'm Chad, the VP of Strategy and Business Development over here at PostBeyond. PostBeyond is a technology platform from the Toronto area in Canada. Also wanted to note, as you see on this page, both Guy and myself have our Twitter handles on here, so you guys can engage with us there. If you have any questions there, we can also look there for them as well. A little bit on PostBeyond. We're the technology solution we're going to be talking a bit about today, really around the idea of advocacy and getting everyone in the firm involved with social media and really the means to doing that. So as we go through the presentation, I'll definitely get into more details there, but really we're the technology behind our discussion today. So thanks.
Thank you, Chad. So as I mentioned earlier, Good to Be Social, we primarily work with companies in the legal industry. Here is a look at some of the companies and law firms that we're currently working with today and helping them figure out how to gain advantage through social media and social technologies. And to go through the agenda today, very quickly, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about why social media is important for lawyers. We're going to talk about how social media enables law firms to win new clients quicker, how to increase revenue. We'll also talk a little bit about two important studies that we're conducting in regards to the use of social media at law firms and by in-house counsel. We'll talk about efficiency, consistency, and mitigating risks through social media. We'll talk about how to define your business objectives and key performance indicators when experimenting with social media. And then we'll do an overview of the PostBeyond platform and why we believe that that platform is optimal for law firms to use to enhance the use of social media within the law firm and expand this use to all of the attorneys and legal professionals inside the law firm. So why is it important for lawyers and law firms to use social media? Well, there's a lot of reasons for it. Number one, and probably most important, is to raise awareness of your services and your lawyer's experience. Many of your clients are using social media today, and so it's important for them to recognize that you as a firm is also using social media and also acting as a thought leader within your practice area or within your industry. Social media enables you to do that in a way that is different from what it has been in the past. So demonstrating thought leadership through the creation of valuable and important content is incredibly important and a way to demonstrate your lawyer's experience and knowledge in a particular area of the law. In addition to that, social media can also be used to attract and retain top talent, whether that talent is coming straight out of law school or if you're looking to do lateral recruiting. Social media can be very effective in a way to reach and engage with that particular audience. Obviously, one of the key drivers behind the use of social media is the ability to generate new business. So after demonstrating thought leadership and creating valuable and engaging content, law firms can potentially generate new business out of repeated use of social media and by creating valuable content. Another advantage of using social media is to enhance your client service, whether that is through the traditional use of social media, by creating client communities, or using other social technologies to improve the way that you service your clients. Social media can be a key differentiator and a way to remind your clients of all the things you're doing at your firm, which leads us to the next point, and that is cross-selling opportunities. So by publishing content, valuable content through social media, social media gives you the opportunity to inform your current clients of other services or other expertise you might have in other different practice areas. And so this gives you a good opportunity to do that. Finally, last but not least, social media can be used and is a very effective tool to do competitive intelligence. So even if you're not actively publishing in social media, you can use social media to gather intelligence about your clients, gather intelligence about your competition, and have an opportunity to really understand what they're publishing on social media, where the opportunities might exist, where the gaps might exist, where you can leverage to create new opportunities. One of the important and difficult issues when you start publishing content through social media, especially if you are from the marketing department or the business development part of a law firm, is how do you ensure that your branding across social media, across every channel, is consistent? Obviously, as a firm and as a marketing department, you probably worked pretty hard to develop an identity, to develop a sense of positioning and branding. And what you want is you want to ensure that as your lawyers or as your professionals within the firm start to participate in social media, that you're able to make sure that your branding is consistent. You want to make sure that the way you describe your services, the way you talk about your experience, the way you position the firm is consistent regardless of who's actually participating in social media. So one of the advantages of Post Beyond, as we will talk about in a little bit, is the ability to ensure and to manage this brand and to make sure that it is consistent across all social media channels. Another important advantage of a platform like Post Beyond is how to limit the liability and manage your risks. So obviously, as lawyers and as law firms, we are a little bit different than any other company out there in that we want to make sure that whatever is said over social media is not going to create problems for our firm. And so a tool like Post Beyond will actually enable you to manage that risk, limit your liability, and mitigate your risks by allowing a central a person or a department to curate and only allow that content which has already passed through a risk mitigation perspective to be published by lawyers. So what Post Beyond allows you to do, again, is to centrally control what is being shared by your lawyers and to make sure that everything has been checked, to make sure that there's no client conflicts, to make sure that nothing is being said which could lead to issues of risk or opening yourself up to liability. which is why one of the reasons that we think Post Beyond is a fabulous tool for the law firm, because it allows you to identify, assess, control, monitor, and review all of the content that is being shared by your attorneys. So why is social media important for law firms? Green Target recently came out with a survey called the Content Marketing and Digital Survey. And in this survey, they identified how in-house counsel are using social media and what the importance of social media is for in-house counsel. And as you can see from this screen right here, from this graph, the amount of content that is being accessed through social media in the last 4 years has actually decreased. And the reason why is because there's an abundance of content out there. And general counsel are somewhat confused about what the best content is and where should they be accessing it. However, if we look at this slide here, again from the Green Target, what you will notice is that general counsel do envision a future where well-executed blogs and well-executed content on social media will actually influence hiring decisions. So what we gain from this research, what we gain from this study, is knowing that while it may not seem that general counsel and in-house counsel are actively participating in social media by publishing and having conversations, they are in fact reading a lot of content. And so publishing the right content that is valuable and useful to general counsel can in fact lead to general counsel hiring your firm or retaining your lawyer services whenever they have an issue. Now, the important part about that is the content that your firm is sharing must be valuable and engaging content. A lot of times we see law firms publish content that is primarily press releases, announcements about new hires, awards, or rankings, and that content is really not what we call engaging content. And by engaging, we mean that content is not content that is going to be shared, it's going to be mentioned, retweeted, liked, followed, etc. And the goal with social media is to spread your content as far as possible, to make sure that it reaches as broad an audience as possible so that you have an ability to potentially influence a hiring decision down the road. And so creating this valuable content is extremely important, and a platform like Post Beyond makes it really easy for your lawyers to share this type of content, even if they're not very experienced or don't have a lot of knowledge about how to use social media. And the way it works is, again, as I mentioned earlier, your marketing department or a central person or group of people within your firm can sort of curate what content will be made available for lawyers to share directly with their social networks. In the winter of last year, we conducted, in conjunction with Above the Law, an important study called the Social Law Firm Index. And in this index, we took a look at the AmLaw 50 law firms and looked at how effective they were being at utilizing social technologies. And what we found were a couple of different things. While most of these law firms were active in social media, as you can see from the chart that we're showing here, a lot of them, while they're having a lot of activity, were not being very effective in gaining engagement from their content. So most of what we saw was being published, as I mentioned earlier, were press releases, news about the firm, awards, rankings, etc., but not really valuable and useful content. Or if that content was in fact being shared, it was being shared in the form of a PDF or a very long article, which is not optimized for social media, and it's not easily shareable. So what we found out of our study is that while most of the top 50 law firms do believe that social media is important and are deploying resources to actually participate in social media, their level of engagement is rather low, and as a result of that, they're very ineffective in how they're using social media. We have conducted a similar study this past spring in the UK with the top 100 UK firms. This is a study that we will be releasing within the next month or so. We did it in conjunction with a company called the ARC Group. And in that study that we found that UK firms were actually doing a better job of creating valuable and engaging content. We are also conducting the same study this summer in the U.S. and expanding our reach beyond the top 50 law firms to the top 100 law firms, the AMLA 100, and also inviting firms outside of the AMLA 100 to actually participate by submitting interesting case studies or examples of how they're using social media in a way that is unique and different. Let me talk a little bit about employee advocacy, because this is at the core of why Good to Be Social entered into a partnership with Post Beyond. Social media, for the most part, not just in law firms, but also in all corporations, is primarily used by the marketing department. For one reason or another, the marketing department has been given the task to manage and create content from a social media perspective. The problem with that, and as a lot of corporations are figuring out, is that the real value of employee advocacy and social media is to allow your content to reach as many people as possible. So what you see here are a visual way to explain the concept of employee advocacy. On the left-hand side, we have a bag of marbles. And if you envision this bag of marbles as your law firm, and if we place this bag of marbles on top of a table, well, the amount of contact, the amount of the table that is actually in contact with this bag is rather small. However, if we take all the marbles out of the bag and spread them across the table, we are covering a much, much larger segment of the table. And this, in a sense, is what we're talking about when we talk about employee advocacy. Employee advocacy gives you the ability as a firm to have every attorney and every legal professional within your firm to participate in social media so that their reach is much larger, much broader, and also so that they can leverage all of the connections that each individual has. Every one of us have our own personal networks. Every one of us has connections and important contacts that could potentially benefit from the content that our firm is sharing and that we as lawyers are sharing. So the concept of employee advocacy is extremely important if you want to increase your reach and also increase the engagement. Because if I'm receiving content not just from a law firm, but from a person that I actually know and I have a relationship with, I am much more likely to read that content and view that content as something that's important and valuable to me. Obviously, the content still needs to be valuable. The content still needs to have something of value that'll help me as a lawyer or as a client solve a particular problem. But if I'm getting it from someone that I'm familiar with, I am much more likely to pay attention to it and to do something with that content. Let's remember that most people don't hire law firms, they hire lawyers. So having each and every lawyer and every legal professional in the firm distribute the firm content makes it a lot more valuable and, again, expands the reach of a law firm. So as we will see in a little bit when we look at what Post Beyond can do, employee advocacy is at the core of what this is all about. It's enabling every employee at a law firm to share that valuable content that you as a marketing department is creating. just as important as employee advocacy is the ability to measure success. Every day we hear from our clients or potential clients, and the number one question they ask is, Guy, how do we figure out the ROI, the return on investment of social media? We're thinking about doing it or we're doing it, but we just don't know if we're doing it right, and we don't really know how do we explain to our managing partners if this is something that is going to be of value to us. What is it that we're getting in return for our investment? So the way to measure social media really varies from each firm and each individual. But basically what we teach our clients and what we help them understand is there's a couple of ways to measure success. Number one is we measure reach. How many people are we reaching with our content? And we do that through looking at the number of likes on our content, the number of followers that we have, the number of the amount of traffic we have to our blog or to our website, the number of subscribers you might have or followers to your content. That is a way to measure reach. Also, in addition to that, when you're measuring reach, you want to take a look at your search engine results. And content is the number one way to improve your search engine rankings. Long gone are the days where you could improve your search engine rankings by including keywords and creating fictitious sites to link to your site. Today, with the changes in the algorithm from Google and other search engines, content is king. And the key around the content is making sure that that content is engaging, which means that it's being shared, it's being liked, it's being commented on. So reach is an extremely important and good way to measure your success. The second way that we measure your success is through engagement. Again, is your comment being liked, shared, commented, retweeted, mentioned, all of these different things? Are you engaging in conversations? Are you reaching audiences and people that you've never dealt with before? This is all a result of engagement. So you can measure all of these things through Google Analytics and other more advanced analytic tools and figure out, okay, how am I doing with my social media strategy? Another thing we like to measure is activity. How much of that content is being used? How much of that content is being shared both internally and externally? And what are the results? Obviously, the number one result would be getting a new client, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all about getting a new client. Maybe you have a webinar and more people are registering for that as a result of your social media activities. Or maybe you're trying to reach the press. You know, the press is very active on Twitter specifically and are always looking at Twitter as a way to find experts for their stories or sources for their stories. So maybe if your goal is to increase your press reach and to get more stories published in industry publications, social media can be a great way to do that. Perhaps it's growing your email database. So social media can drive people back to your website and have them give them your email, their email address in exchange for a white paper or an article or registration for an event or a seminar or a webinar. So all of this activity is a way to measure success. Again, it doesn't always have to be about getting hired. There's a lot of other ways that you can measure success. As I previously mentioned, attracting and retaining top talent. So that's another way. If your social media presence allowed a great law student coming out of law school or a great lateral hire because of what you're doing social media, that can also be measured as a successful achievement. And then finally, we measure success with goals. When we start to figure out what you want to do with your social media strategy, it's important to figure out what your overall goals are. And the first thing we do is we look at what are your overall firm business goals? What are your business objectives? Is it to grow a series of practices? Is it to grow your penetration within a specific industry? Is it to give your attorneys more exposure as thought leaders? And based upon those high-level business goals, then you can say, okay, well then how do we translate that into our social media strategy? How do these goals align with our overall social media strategy? And they have to be aligned in order for you to be successful. The other thing I want to talk about is social media is not a destination. Social media is a journey, and it's always evolving and it's never complete. So as you can see from this circle, social media is an ongoing process where you define what you want to do, you analyze your results, you solve your problems, you implement new strategies, you review them, and you define them again. It's an ongoing circle of testing, changing, tweaking, measuring, and performing. And it continues on and on and on. So social media success can't be measured in a period of 3 months or even 6 months. It takes time to build trust. It takes time to build relationships. But through the period of time, you can, in fact, achieve success, and you can, in fact, measure all of this success. I'm going to turn it over now to Chad to talk a little bit about Post Beyond and why this tool is a great tool for law firms to use as they're starting to, or if they want to enhance their social media activity. What Chad will do is he'll walk you through the history of Post Beyond and then give you a few screenshots of the actual platform and how it actually helps law firms manage their social media strategy and make it really easy for all of the attorneys at a firm to share the content that the law firm is creating. Chad?
Thanks, Guy. It's a great overview. So yeah, no, I mean, the thing about Post Beyond, what we've really focused on is advocacy, and the fact now that social business is built around everyone in a firm and not just, you know, the marketers or the community managers. So with that, the big thing we noticed, you know, about 2 years ago when we began building our technology was that this was a very hard thing to do. You know, to manage social media communications for an entire firm, to get everybody involved and engaged with it was a really long and very costly process. With that, we have established an enterprise platform that lives in the cloud. It's very simple to use across all your devices. The marketing team now has the ability to create and approve and curate content where it's then able to share and actually measure, as we've talked about, to hit our goals. So we'll get into that in deeper depth in a second. But the main problem we were after solving was that it's very difficult to get our other colleagues involved. We'd have to email them. We'd have to, you know, we saw everything you could imagine, none of which worked very well. So what we wanted to do is really figure out the logistics behind this. How can we make it very simple? And how can we get everybody involved with our goals moving forward? A really quick case study, just to show you kind of the impact. So back to what Guy really mentioned in terms of reach and how much further, you know, we can reach with a product like Post Beyond. You know, we have a firm here that had a corporate reach of about 5,000 people when we started. You know, from there we got all of the other employees and colleagues, partners, etc. involved, and now we're hitting, you know, over 16 times the reach, and that's tremendous. Tremendous impact, right? The content we're creating as a marketing team, what we're trying to put out there, you know, whether it's trying to get hired or it's trying to share a lot of the other key pieces of content that Guy mentioned, we're now hitting that many more people. And ultimately, it's a much more authentic group as well, due to the fact that our firm's associates and partners have established those relationships. They have very established networks, whether it's across LinkedIn or other social networks, and we can now get that information in front of them, which is hugely impactful, and it's going to drive a lot of the goals we mentioned.
So this is what Chad was showing is another example of the bag of marbles, right? Where in their case study they showed the reach that a particular company had just by publishing through its own social media channels. but when they put in place the Post Beyond platform, their reach grew exponentially. And that is exactly what we're talking about when it comes to law firms. It's putting everyone at the law firm and giving them the ability to enhance your overall reach of that valuable content that you're hopefully creating.
Exactly. So what I wanted to do today was really jump into some live screenshots, and we'll talk a little bit about a story of a global law firm today. So with this mock-up, what you're actually seeing is the Post Beyond platform. Every person in the firm would have access to this side of our platform. Within the technology, there's the publishing component, which we're looking at today, which allows me to select content. So you can see any one of these tiles within the system is really a piece of social media content that I can scan through, I can take a look at, and I can ultimately share with my networks. And the big thing here to remember is we are really after, mitigating risk and providing brand consistency with the platform. So this is all created and curated, again, by our marketing teams. Anyone that's involved with that sort of activity today on an, external or internal capacity has access to managing this for everyone. They make sure that this information that's going out across social is now, along with their brand guidelines, and it's really going to establish and there's understanding that it's not going to be of risk to our network. And as an employee in the firm, I can come into this portal, I can see the content I might want to share with my network, and really easily I can share it. So with the push of any of these buttons, you can see Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I can share that directly to my personal network. And it's as simple as that. And really just to show you what it looks like from that standpoint, when I to press that button, you can see here, this is for Twitter, but it comes out authentically on my personal network. So you can see Steve here shared this from Post Beyond, from the platform, and on his Twitter feed, this picture of their fair comes out, and it's very authentic to his network. So you can see it's not a retweet, it's not a reshare in this case, it's something that he is sharing directly, and ultimately we are now able to capture and have full visibility into what impact this has on us as a firm. Another big thing to touch on, and one thing we've worked very hard on, is really the curation and suggestion piece. So we won't get into tremendous detail on this right now, but the big idea that we've worked on is how everyone can now be involved in collaborating around content marketing. So you can see the example here today is an Above the Law article. What we've built is extensions for the browser. So whether it be Chrome or any of the major browsers, you can see Post Beyond up in the top right-hand corner. When that extension is clicked, what happens here is the information is pulled right into Post Beyond, and I can send it now back to my team for approval. So anyone in the firm, whether it's your partners, whether it's anyone involved in the marketing team or it's the associates, etc., they all have access to being a part of this and ultimately suggesting content for approval. So if I was to press suggest post here, what that does is it sends back to this Post Beyond system, to my marketing team, that I've suggested a piece of content that I'd like to be approved for everyone. So you can see we've built in, again, back to the mitigation of risk and providing consistency, we have built a workflow into the platform to ensure that the people that are approving these sorts of information and these social posts are getting that ability to do so. So that's just a little bit on the curation and suggestion piece.
Yeah, and if I might add to that, Chad. So
yeah.
This is a great way that the platform allows you or allows your lawyers to actually get more involved with identifying and sharing content which they deem to be valuable. Most lawyers spend a good amount of time, whether it's at the office or commuting to and from work, reading industry and legal content. And a lot of times there may be content there that gives them a particular idea or something that they want to comment on or want to give their particular opinion or analysis of. So by employing a tool like Post Beyond, lawyers can very easily share that content or suggest that content to the marketing team, kind of give the reason why this content should be shared, by the firm or even at a larger level by attorneys within the firm, whether it's at the practice group level or at the firm level, and then very easily suggest that content. And then people in the marketing department can take a look at this content, make sure it's formatted properly, make sure there's no conflicts involved or client issues involved, and then I'll either share it as a firm or allow individual people or practice group within the firm to actually share this content. So what this functionality actually does is it allows you to take it to a whole other level and allow your attorneys to start curating content. And content curation is an extremely important way to maintain a thought leadership and top of mind type of attention from your target audience.
Definitely, and I think with that guy, the collaboration piece is very big. From experience now, it's, a lot of the companies we work with, everyone likes to be involved, and it really drives engagement for everyone. So when you have a culture within the firm, in a lot of ways, this is sort of a transformation in ways. So getting the engagement and getting people to actually have a say in a lot of information they see. There's a lot of great information they might source themselves online, and ultimately with this piece, we can, allow them to be a part of it and ultimately make our lives even that much easier as managers or administrators of the system, because we're getting an influx of other quality content that our colleagues are seeing online. And really the big part for us and the big focus was obviously visibility into the analytics. So as Guy mentioned, a big focus around reach, engagement, the activities and goals we've set forth. So when we start with anyone, we really go through that. And you can see here, this is just a quick snapshot of a lot of the capabilities we have from an analytic perspective. But really everything that we're doing in the system is now trackable and we're able to understand it. So whether it's any of our users, any of the sharing, that they're doing, if they're suggesting content back to us, the top performing content. So on that side, any of the posts that we are serving up to everyone, what is working for everyone? What is working for their audience? Ultimately, how are we wanting to, make their personal brand stand out, right, with sharing this quality information? So it allows us to then circle back and close the loop in every fashion. So whether that's helping certain individuals in the firm, be thought leaders at a greater level, or it's taking the content itself and being able to circle it back, and understand where we want to continue going with that. If there's something we're creating on the blog, or there's any sort of different ideas of content that we are creating, what's working? What's working with now this extended audience that we've created throughout the entire firm? And those insights are super valuable for all those reasons, but ultimately, on a go-forward basis, we can bring incentives and leaderboards and lots of fun to the culture of the firm and ultimately get everybody socially enabled and active.
So we talked about key performance indicators a few minutes ago, and what the analytics component of Post Beyond allows you to do is really hone in on those indicators. You can see what content is being shared, what content is being engaged with, and by whom. The ability to actually rank users within your firm and see, which attorneys or legal professionals are doing the best job at not just sharing their content, but customizing it, if allowed, in order to reach maximum engagement is an incredible, powerful tool. Whether you choose to create leaderboards or you just want to keep that information to yourself as a marketing department, it does enable you to see a couple of things. It enables you to see who has large networks in social media, who's doing the best job at sharing, who's getting the most engagement, what content is the most popular. Is it content that you're creating? Is it content that you're curating? And what type of content? Are there blog posts? Are there articles? Are the event news? Whatever that might be. It also allows you, and you can't see it from the screenshot, but you're able to create groups, whether it's practice groups or office locations or different departments within the firm, and you can measure their effectiveness. And you can also make it available so that each individual group gets content that is only available for them to share. So it's a really powerful way to slice up your performance whether it's at a group level, at an individual level, at a content level, and really hone in on what's working and what's not working. And so that image that I showed, that graph that I showed before of a constant evolution and a constant opportunity to measure and experiment, this is a great way to figure out, how you're doing, who's doing what, how much of your content is being shared, and what kind of an impact is your content having.
Definitely. So I guess now, Guy, we have about 20 minutes left. I know we wanted to open up, some more dialogue around and see if there's any questions from the group today. So what I'm going to do is see if we have any questions. And again, anybody on the line, if you have any questions, please, add to the GoToWebinar. Taking a look right now. So let's see here. Yep, I have one here, Guy. The first one was, what if we're not doing much social today, and how would we get started with something like this? Which is a great question.
Well, that's a great question, and we've talked to a couple of firms that are really just at the beginning of figuring out how to use social media. And one of the problems that we see is, while the marketing department might be willing and able to create valuable content, attorneys are somewhat unsure as to how to even use social media, what content should they be posting. And so actually Post Beyond makes it really easy for firms that are not doing social to start that process. If you have someone in the marketing team that is creating already valuable content or curating that content, and then you make that available to your attorneys, all the attorneys really have to do is click on a button, and whatever social networks they're connected to, they're able to share that content that was created by the firm in a very easy and simple way. So Post Beyond is actually a really good tool for those firms that are just starting to figure out how to use social, or for firms that are using social but where their attorneys are not really engaged or actively participating.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. And I think we've worked very hard on that enablement piece, Guy. I know, really with people that are a little bit shy of social today, and they want to do it, but it's really a push forward for them. They really know that those individuals that are working on this sort of information every day can then spread that mind share, right? I think that's the big thing we've seen is there's a trust factor there even internally, where those people are the ones who are publishing on behalf of the firm. So now that information being served up to them, it's a trust thing, and they're very, very active after that. So that's one thing, through our onboarding and getting things kicked off with any of our clients, we definitely see that. Have another one here. What if we're only using LinkedIn, was the question. What are your thoughts on that, Guy?
Well, again, the nice thing about the Post Beyond tool is that even if a lawyer is only using LinkedIn and connected to LinkedIn, they can still use the platform and only be sharing the content on LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn is a very popular social network for lawyers. Most lawyers spend most of their time there if they're anywhere in the social networks. And so having, again, the ability of the marketing department or someone centrally to curate and create that content and then allowing lawyers to share that is a really valuable tool, even if you're just doing it on LinkedIn. So just belonging to one network is certainly not an impediment to being effective on social media. Obviously, you want to go beyond LinkedIn at some point and leverage the advantage that other social networks have. But even if you're just starting to experiment on LinkedIn and as a way to, provide and produce valuable content, Post Beyond makes it really easy for lawyers to do that.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think LinkedIn is really a core focus, in the context of the law firm. Really the best place to start anyways. I think you can start to experiment with the other ones. Certainly Facebook we see when it comes to even hiring new people in some ways, reaching those more personal networks, on the recruitment side of things for the firm. Things like that where you can get a bit more creative, but certainly LinkedIn I think is the core focus in this case, and that's something that we would certainly focus on, together. Let's see here. I have a question here about the size of the firm. So if I'm a small firm, versus a large one, does that matter? Does that make a difference?
Yeah, I don't think it makes a huge difference. In our research that we did in the Social Law Firm Index, we actually found that smaller firms, in fact, are being more successful and are experimenting more with social media than larger firms. And the reason for that, I think, is twofold. Number one is, there's not so much red tape and bureaucracy to go through in a smaller firm traditionally. If a couple of the partners decide they want to start experimenting and using social media, they usually can do so pretty easily and rapidly and not going through a lot of red tape. Also, smaller firms, obviously, in trying to compete and gain competitive advantage, are experimenting with new technologies and are being more aggressive in using these technologies from a business development and marketing perspective. So the Post Beyond platform, it really doesn't matter if you have 5, 10, 15, 100, or 200 attorneys, especially if you're working with a smaller firm or in a smaller firm. Obviously, you want to put as many resources available. So even if you have only 5 attorneys working at a firm, every attorney at the firm probably has their own social network. And so getting that message out to every one of those contacts is important, and that's why a tool like Post Beyond becomes even more important at a smaller firm, because it enables the firm to have a larger reach.
Definitely. Another one here about Hootsuite, actually. So is Post Beyond a replacement for Hootsuite?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we get that question asked a lot. And I'm sure, Chad, you get that asked a lot as well. So no, it's a completely different thing. Hootsuite is primarily used by an organization or an individual to just publish their content to their individual social networks. And it also is used as a monitoring tool where you can create different streams and look at what content is being published by people or by topic. What Post Beyond does is it allows you to take the content that you're publishing through Hootsuite and then amplify that content by allowing everyone within your firm or your organization to share that content. So one is not dependent on the other. It's not an either or. Actually, Post Beyond is a really valuable addition and a tool that enables you to get maximum benefit.
Certainly. Yeah, and I'll add to that, Guy. I definitely get that question a lot, and they are two very separate things. With Hootsuite does a tremendous job at managing your company profiles and pages. And the monitoring side, I use both myself. Certainly where we focused on distribution and promotion, similar to what they do from the company perspective, our core focus is more the advocacy base or the ambassadors within the company and how we can tie all that together. So it is very separate things, and there is really a strategy as part of it as to how we sort of manage all of it together. But certainly this is a much more focused initiative on sort of the advocate or the firm's employees themselves that way. Yep. See, we've got a couple more here. Is training necessary or useful? With something like Post Beyond.
I think it is definitely useful. Not necessarily the tool itself, because I think the tool is rather simple to use. About a half hour to an hour of training is really all it would take. I think the more important piece of the training is not on how to use the tool, but why. Why should I be using this tool? Why is it important? Why should lawyers be participating in social media? What's the value associated with that? So I think that's the thing that a lot of firms are struggling with, is help in letting and informing their attorneys of why it's important for them to participate in social media. As I said earlier, a lot of law firms or lawyers think, oh, social media, that's something that the marketing department should do, and I don't really have the time or the energy to do anything there. Well, it actually doesn't work that way, and those firms that are most successful actually are getting their attorneys to participate in social media. And through a tool like Post Beyond, it actually is really easy to get them to participate. Again, all they need to do is click on a couple of buttons, and they're often sharing their content, the firm's content. But every lawyer needs to develop their network and build their personal brand, and at the same time build the brand of the firm. So social media is not just something that the marketing department needs to do. Every lawyer needs to be involved. Every lawyer needs to participate, because that's how you're going to maximize your reach and maximize your engagement. And a tool like Post Beyond really makes it easy for everyone in the firm. There's really no excuse to participate at one level or another in spreading the word out about the firm, its services, and its experience and knowledge.
Definitely. I think one thing we've really focused on too, Guy, with the training is the efficiency, right? The time efficiency that we've been after with the platform, whether it's for the marketing teams, they're focused so much on the strategy and creating and curating content, and ultimately now the other individuals, saving them so much time in actually being involved, like you said, with their personal brand, growing their connections, showing their thought leadership, and how important that is for them individually and ultimately for the firm as well. So I think the enablement and the time efficiency side of things on both, depending on the role of the platform, we see both of those being a real big part of the why, like you mentioned. I got one more here. Can you give us an example of outside of the legal side of things? So outside of legal, is there any examples there?
Well, I'll let you take that one, Chad. You can talk a little bit about the clients you guys are working with outside of legal.
Certainly. Yeah, so I think a good one to talk about would be, certainly known by everyone, would be Starbucks. I think, when you look at a company like Starbucks, obviously retail locations, a lot of different employees, certainly the power of advocacy for them is getting a lot of those individuals involved, right? So we've been working with them for about 7 months now. Really a core focus being, getting all those individuals engaged, right? So everything we've talked about today, just taking it to that brand level, right? The consistency, the employer brand that they have, a big thing for them is hiring as a focus, as a goal from the beginning, and really getting more activity and engagement around their various jobs available, whether it be at the barista level, manager level, territory manager level, all these different things, and they're growing, rapidly, as we all know. So opening up new locations everywhere, they have a lot of things to do there. And so what we've done is been able to get a lot of those advocates into the system, get all of those people, collaboratively sharing and really driving that recruitment side of things for them. So that's what their goals are, outside of the employer brand and the marketing side of things, but also driving a lot of these jobs that they're after. And that's one outside of legal that, right off the top of my head. We have others, in the B2B space. So there's some that certainly tied to the legal sort of mentality, as you mentioned with White Papers Guy and certain other content initiatives and how we can drive goals that way. So, we're fortunate, in the advocacy space to have a number of different sort of channels or verticals that we work with and a few different sort of goals and objectives that come from that. So that's a core one I think I could touch on that certainly everyone would know. And I think that provides a good kind of overview as to the different sides and different things we can do there.
Great.
Awesome.
Any other questions, Chad?
I'm just going to check that really quickly here, see if there's any more. Yep, I have two more here. Is this product license based on users or firm level?
I'll let you answer that one, Chad.
Yes, certainly. So the short answer to that question is that it really depends. So, I mean, when we're looking at, we usually are typically looking at, it all depends on the rollout, right? So when we're engaged with anyone, we would look at, sort of how many users are within the whole firm. What is our goal? Do we see it being an entire firm thing? Ultimately, I think our goal is to get there eventually, right? But typically we'll do it in kind of a rolled out phased approach, right? So again, depending on size, it can be based on a certain number to begin with, and then we'll roll out we look at things over 12 months together and how we're going to do that. But really it does come down to a few different ways we can do it, and ultimately we talk through that. But at the smaller level, certainly based on users and license. At the larger level, more of a planned approach as to how we're going to get as many people in the firm as possible involved.
Yeah, and what we're seeing, a lot of the firms that we're talking to that are interested in the platform is that they want to start at the practice group level. So traditionally there's, a couple of practice groups within a firm that are interested in trying it out and seeing how it goes. And so usually they'll get a license based upon the size of the practice group, number of users there, and then when they actually want to roll it out to the firm at large, then they can negotiate a rate that is more amenable to a larger scale. But you can start this at the practice group level. In fact, we encourage a lot of our clients to start at the practice group level to demonstrate success and to demonstrate return on investment. And it's a very affordable product in my experience, and the ROI based upon what it is, what the investment is really tremendous. So if you're interested, I would say definitely contact us, and we can find a solution that works for you and fits your budget.
Certainly, yeah, and that nails it for sure, Guy. In terms of, feel free to reach out to us. Any questions surrounding that? I mean, have a bit of discussion as to kind of your thoughts personally around it. As you can see, our contact information is here. You can email both Guy or myself, and we're happy to have some discussions around that and really how quick it is to sort of get something like this up and running at your firm.
Did we have another question, Chad?
Actually, I think that was it.
Okay. One other thing I'd like to invite viewers of this webinar. Number one is we are recording this webinar, so if there's anyone in your firm that is interested in listening and looking at it, we will be sending a link where you can access it on demand. And the second thing, for those of you that are interested, and I hope all of you are interested, one of the things that is really valuable is a one-on-one demo of the actual platform. And what we have done in the past is we'll actually create a mock-up using a live platform and actually import your content and show you how easy it is to manage the content and how easy it is to activate your lawyers through the platform. So I would highly encourage all of you to please email us so we can set up one-on-one individual demonstrations of the platform and enable you to see how this platform would work within the confines of your firm and the content that you're currently creating. And with that said, we have run out of time. Hopefully you found this webinar to be useful and valuable. We definitely welcome your comments, suggestions for the future, and hope to see you all out in cyberspace or in social media. Again, please do not hesitate to contact me or Chad if you have any questions or if you'd like to request a personal demo. Thank you very much for your time today.